In today's short video, let's solve Rosalind's bioinformatics strongholds first challenge, which is counting DNA nucleotides. And then once you click it, the screen is going to show a problem statement in terms of what's given, what should be returned, and a sample dataset that could be used or can be used, and its sample output, which is important before you actually download the dataset, and which you'll only have 5 minutes to upload the answer. And then if you click this part of the screen, it's going to showcase a brief summary in terms of what DNA is and how it's relevant in the field of bioinformatics. Now let's move on to the sort of conceptual approach in terms of how I would solve this particular problem. The problem statement for counting DNA nucleotides states that a string is simply an ordered collection of symbols selected from some alphabet and formed into a word. The length of a string is the number of symbols that it contains. An example of a length 21 DNA string whose alphabet contains the symbol A, C, G, and T is that DNA string. Given a DNA string, S of length at most 100, return 4 integers separated by spaces counting the respective number of times that the symbols A, C, G, and T occurs in S. It's important to note that once you actually submit a viable solution to this particular problem, Rosalind actually gives you access to the solutions forum, which can be used to sort of explore, read into what other people are doing and how they're actually solving this particular problem. So in that in mind, there are different ways to solve this problem. The solution that will be used to solve this particular problem will be using a dictionary data structure available in Python, which uses a key, which is oftentimes unique, and a value pair for that given unique key. By that case, the key that will be used will be the respective acronym for the 4 types of bases found in DNA molecule, which will be A for adenine, C for cytosine, G for guanine, and T for thymine, right? That's going to be the keys. So A, C, G, and T. And basically, given for example, let's say this given ATG DNA string, what's going to happen that as we iterate it through that each one, with a for and range loop, what's going to happen is that we're going to keep track of everything that's been visited and then counting its frequency. So in this case, let's say, since we are using a dictionary data structure, what's going to happen is that as soon as we visit this particular part of the string, what's going to happen is this is going to turn into a key, because in my solution, I'm not going to define the key beforehand, which is important to mind, because I'm thinking that down the line, this can also be used sort of a utility function for like counting the frequency of, let's say, like a RNA string. So in this case, I'm not going to define the key beforehand. It's going to be defined as soon as we visit that particular string. So in this case, since we visited A, it's going to set that as a key and initialize it as 1. And then next, if it visits T, what's going to happen is that since it's not been visited, it's going to be a new particular key, initialized to 1, and then G, initialize to 1, right? And then C, initialized to 1, and then in this case, T, G, C has been visited, but now when we reach T, what's going to happen is that this value is going to be incremented to 2 in this case, and then 3, and then so on, right? This particular solution is going to follow that pattern that if it's not been accounted for in the given string, it's going to become a specific unique key, but then if it's visited again, it's going to increment it by 1. It follows that same general pattern. So now let's move on to the coding solution for this particular problem. The language that will be used to solve this problem is going to be Python, and the programming platform I'm using is Replit, but feel free to use any programming language or any programming platform, because the only thing that Rosalind is sort of expecting from you is the fact that once you're submitting the solution, it has to follow the same format, right? So now we're going to solve this problem based on the conceptual thought process we did beforehand. So first things first, let's initialize a string, and we'll call it strand string in this case. And then that strand string is going to hold, in this case, based on the sample data set, this given sequence of DNA. And then, considering that we're wanting to create a function that can also be used for counting the frequency of, let's say, RNA strand, then we'll just write the function called strand count, which will pass the strand string, right? Now up here, we're going to write that function. So def strand count, strand string, passing in that string of DNA. And now in this function, this is where we're going to create the dictionary. And then based on that dictionary, and as we write or as we iterate through the string, we're going to assign keys, based on when we visit that particular part of the string. And then again, if it's visited beforehand or already visited, it's going to increment by 1. Otherwise, we're going to set that as a new key and set that value as 1. And then as well as in this function, we're going to output the specific keys and its respective frequency values. So in this case, we're going to create an empty dictionary beforehand. And then now we're going to write the for in range loop. Length of the strand string, right? Because we want to iterate through the entire thing. And now you want to do that first check, right? If the strand string is in the dictionary, then you want to say that, or at least you want to increment that key by 1. Otherwise, if it's not been accounted for and it's completely new, then you just simply want to initialize that as a new key. And then set that as 1. And then now you'll just say, or at least print I, or everything in the dictionary with its corresponding key and then the value or frequency. Dict I, and then close it. Okay, let's try it out. In this case, this should be expected when we run. Right, so it's A, 20, C is 12, G is 17, T, perfect, 20, 21. So now we're going to come back to Rosalind, and we're wanting to download data set, and we want to submit this particular solution, right? So once you download that data set, what's going to happen is that there is going to be a TXT file that's going to pop up, and it's going to let you open it. And what you're wanting to do next is you simply, in this case, you're just going to want to copy and paste that entire string or randomly generated string into the strand string, and then you're going to rerun that again. Oh, 1 second. There you go. Right, so then considering you do have to follow a particular format, you just want to output A as 224, C as 205, G as 218, and then T as 223. I think that should be correct. Let's see. Then you just paste that into Rosalind submission form and then submit it. There you go. It's correct. Solution is correct. And then right before I let you go, it is important to note that you can technically refactor this code, that instead of just simply cutting and pasting the entire new randomly generated string, you can just read that given TXT file once you download it, and then output a new TXT file that holds A, C, G, T in order instead of what I'm doing now. And it's important to note that in this case, the time complexity for this particular function is actually O of n, since we are iterating through the entire string and visiting each one, and the space complexity is actually O of n as well, since we are storing the frequency of the given keys as initialized in the dictionary right here.